made to you so special? Nothing. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn.
Okay, guys, we are back. Frank Stout, just a guy from Brooklyn. I've really been having fun doing these remixes for you. They're not so much reclamation projects anymore, more like fine tinkering. And honestly, I'm just happy because now these videos they're at the level that I really wanted them to be from the beginning. So, you know, as I've said often, if whether you tried before and failed or whether you just gave up, all I can say is, baby, come back. So I don't want to waste much time, so I'm just going to give you my 2 rules. Rule number 1, spoiler warning. I'm going to give a hard spoiler warning since these movies are very old. Rule number 2, as always, this is a favorites list, not a best list. So the best way you can come at me with these lists is to show me yours. So without further ado, on to the video. Well, basically, I'm going to try and break the record for fewest views in a video because I'm going to talk about something that's just not popular right now. I'm going to give you my ranking of my favorite sword and sorcery or sword and sandals type movies. Basically, anything involving a sword is probably on this list. I wish I could tell you that these movies are popular right now, but they're not. I mean, everything right now is basically comic books, horror, and action. At number 20 is The Mask of Zorro, came out in 1998. This is Antonio Banderas. This is Captain Zeta-Jones. This is a really fun movie, big swashbuckler movie. Zorro's been around for a very long time, if you didn't know. They used to have older movies back in the day, like Zorro the Gay Blade, etc., etc. Zorro's fun. I have nothing negative to say about this one. Number 19 is Conan the Destroyer. I had mixed feelings about this movie. It came out in 1984 because of my love for the original Conan the Barbarian. And I really was disappointed in this one because Conan the Barbarian, it's a very serious type movie. Very grounded. I would say way more grounded. They decided to do a sequel and do this sequel with a little bit more fantasy, which I didn't mind, a little bit more magic. They threw some more comedy in. Also, not a big deal, but it definitely just didn't have the feel of the first. Putting that aside, if you just put the original aside, watch this one on its own, it's a fun sword and sorcery movie. Grace Jones in there. You got Wilt Chamberlain. Around this time, Arnold Schwarzenegger took Wilt and his he took Wilt with his bodybuilding buddies, and they went to work out together. Wilt was dominating. Wilt was outlifting these guys. Arnold couldn't believe it.
He came to the gym and he would do a tricep extension. The big guys, the strongest guys, would do, let's say, 120 pounds, let's say, right? He would come and he would do 150, 170 pounds. Wilt Chamberlain. That's how strong he was.
Yeah.
I remember that he lifted me up like with one arm like nothing.
Number 18, Kill Bill. I put volume 1 and 2 together. Tarantino, I don't have the love for him like I used to. His earlier work just did it for me. I loved all the dialogue. I loved all the the craziness and stuff. And then he started making movies like Kill Bill where he was kind of mashing up ideas, like spaghetti westerns, old kung fu movies, samurai movies, all blended together into one crazy revenge story. And it's fun as far as a sword type movie. It's going to give you the goods. It's going to give you what you want. At number 17, I've got Troy. This is Hector. This is Achilles. This is the Trojan horse. This is, history. Brad Pitt was in his prime at this moment. Coming in at number 16 is a guilty pleasure of mine. It is called Ninja 3, The Domination. Came out in 1984. This is one crazy movie. It is an 80s movie. It is a ninja movie. It is a possession movie, a horror movie. It's got aerobics. It's got Breakin's Lucinda Dickey having a sex scene with the world's hairiest man and a can of V8 juice. I mean, I don't even know who thinks up stuff like that. It was done by Canon. If you don't know who Canon is, they're like a crazy pair of Israeli filmmakers who came here to the States, and they made some crazy movies that out of 300 movies that they would do, maybe about 4 of them were good, but those 4 were gems. Coming in at number 15 is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This is Kevin Costner. This is Morgan Freeman. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, if you know who she is. This is the Robin Hood story done in a very fun way. But the scene stealer in this movie, it's Alan Rickman. Yes, Professor Snape. A hero is only as good as his villain-based type movies. And Alan Rickman is just a scene stealer.
Hooded viper simply slithers into the forest. You, Myram, 10:30 tonight. You, 10:45. Bring a friend.
Number 14 is Braveheart. Came out in 1995. This is Mel Gibson playing William Wallace, very famous Scot, who obviously helped to fight the English. Perfect movie. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what Mel Gibson did with this was special. I do feel it's a tad long, and that's probably why I don't rewatch it often. But when I do, you get everything you can out of it. It's so good. This is all about a Scot who loses his wife, his love, to the English, and he goes on a just absolute tear, and he joins the rebellion against the English. Number 13 is The Beastmaster. The only thing that can top a type of Conan type of movie is literally a Conan type of movie where the Conan character can literally communicate with animals. Not just communicate with animals, they're like his friends. He can see through their eyes, which is a great gift. He befriends a big Black Panther. He befriends a hawk. He befriends the 2 little rodent type characters. Number 12 is Willow. Willow is Lucasfilm's attempt at trying to do a Lord of the Rings style movie. I remember Ron Howard saying that he was highly influenced by the Lord of the Rings. So you can kind of see a kind of simpler yet different Lord of the Rings type movie here. They did world building here. They created their own lore here, which is why the movie became so popular. Warwick Davis has been in the movie business for such a long time, and I'm so happy that he's still getting work. Coming in at number 11, and I always chuckle at this one, I shouldn't, but it's 300. Came out in 2006. Now that 300 is an old movie, the internet has had its fun with it. When you look at it now, you can see kind of some faults. All these guys got like CGI 6-packs and stuff like that. You gotta understand, this movie is basically a comic book graphic novel made to film, and it literally looks like that. It's visually stunning. It's about the famous 300 Spartans who fought, the Battle of Thermopylae and all that. It's great. History-wise, it's not quite accurate to what really happened, but these days, when you're doing a movie about something, nothing really is. Coming in at number 10 is Crow. Came out in 1983. This is a really fun kind of quest type of story. It obviously takes place on some other planet where you have this kind of 2 kingdoms uniting by having a wedding, and then the bride is stolen by this evil interplanetary villain demon creature, and then they try to kill everybody off, but the prince survives, and he gathers a band of thieves and anybody he can find to try and combat this evil. This is almost like a type of video game type quest movie where you have to go to certain places to gather either items or ways to fulfill your quest. And so it definitely feels that way to a certain extent. And if you look real good, you're going to see a very, very young Liam Neeson in this. Number 9 is another ninja classic, and this is my favorite. It's considered the best. It is Revenge of the Ninja. Came out in 1983. Canon seemed to have they cornered the market on this whole ninja thing. But this is the best that they did. Shoko Sugi plays the head character, who basically his family is almost all completely killed off by bad ninja in Japan. He decides to try to escape that life, so he moves to the States, opens up a doll gallery, him and his son and his mother. His son being his real son, who is a fantastic martial artist, even as a little kid during the movie. That little boy does is fantastic. Throughout the movie, there are like scenes almost in like a slasher type feel, where there's a ninja just taking out people. He's taking out mobsters, and each one in just like a very interesting way. Using all type of ninja weapons. The battle at the end between he himself being a ninja battling the bad ninja, is one of the best battles I've ever seen on film. It's that good. Number 8 is I think it's a sleeper. A lot of people have never heard of this movie, and that is The 13th Warrior. It's based on a book called Eaters of the Dead. It came out in 1999. Stars Antonio Banderas, who plays an Arab man who was cast away, and he ends up on a quest with 12 other crazy ass Vikings. They're sent on a quest to find out what's going on with a kingdom being invaded by something like an ancient evil, and they need to find out what this ancient evil is. Banderas is almost like the comic relief.
He insisted.
Even out of a sword, he makes a knife. When you die, can I give that to me daughter?
But, there are some times where he shows them up, which is nice. And there's like a culture thing going on there. There's concepts about religion because, you have Muslim religion and then the old Viking religion. It's all blended together. It all works. It's all a fantastic story. It didn't do too great at the box office, and it's a shame. Number 7 is a big, big classic, and that is The Princess Bride, 1987. What can be said about this movie that hasn't been said? It's not just a swashbuckling, action-packed movie. It has everything. It has heart. It's got true love. It's got torture. It's got huge rats. It's got Andre the Giant. You love this movie to the point where you just take quotes in this movie and they just start coming at you.
As you wish.
Inconceivable!
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
And it's all being narrated to a little boy, and that makes it even more fun to me. Just love everything about it. Number 6 is Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Don't worry, you're not going to see any other Pirates movies on my list. This is the only one that I even bother to watch. I really believe that all the sequels are just bloated cash grabs. They're terrible. They're long, they're boring, they're really not telling you much. This is the one to watch. Understand that this movie is based on a ride at Disney World. Nobody thought that this was going to make any type of movie. Guess what? It spawned a franchise. Now, a franchise that I'm not fond of, but I love the original. The original is special. Johnny Depp, one of his greatest roles. Here he still goes to hospitals dressed up as Jack Sparrow to, make children in the PICUs feel better. Coming in at number 5 is The Last Samurai. It came out 2003. Now, when I first heard of this movie, The Last Samurai and Tom Cruise, how can Tom Cruise be the last samurai? He's not even Japanese. And I trained over 9 years in jiu-jitsu. I know all about Japanese art. So I walked in really with low expectations. I was totally blown away. It's a beautiful movie. This one really hits you in the feels. I will say it does have the very similar template that a lot of movies have. Avatar, Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves. I think this one did it best. Yeah, that's right. I think it did better than Avatar. It's about a soldier who's been, traumatized soldier who's done some bad things, for his country, and he's sent to Japan to train some Japanese to fight against some rebellious samurais. And he ends up getting captured by them. And while he's stuck there for many, many months, they want to learn from him because they want to learn from their enemy. And he does the same. And he becomes to learn what they're about, learn that they're not really rebelling, they're actually in service. And that's technically what the word samurai means, to serve. Tom Cruise, you can say what you want about him, but the man knows how to entertain you. I keep saying that. He knows what he's doing. He knows his craft. I give him that. And he is fantastic in this. Coming in at number 4 is Gladiator. Came out in 2000. This is Russell Crowe at his best. General that became a slave. The slave that became a gladiator. The gladiator that defied an emperor. This movie has heart. Joaquin Phoenix in this movie eats up scenes. I've been coining his phrase.
It vexes me. I'm terribly vexed.
I've been saying that for years. That's how much of effect that this movie has had on me. Coming in at number 3 is Highlander. Now I'm going to apologize to anyone who's a fan of the sequels, and I'm going to even further apologize to anyone who was a fan of the television show that came out from this movie. I am not a fan of any of those things. I am only a fan of the original movie. I know that the TV show was a solid TV show, but when you understand the premise of what this movie is, and I'm going to tell you right now, there's a group of immortal people here on this earth. The only way they can die is if their head gets separated from the body. They are put in this earth to play a type of game. They have to kill each other off until there is only one. And that's where the phrase, there can only be one, it's repeated throughout. And you follow one of them, and he's a Scotsman. It's a Connor McLeod, played by Christopher Lambert. And he is fantastic in this movie. This movie is very 80s. They're supposed to kill each other off because the remaining immortal is supposed to get a prize. What the prize is, I can't tell you. I would never spoil something like that for you. You got to go watch the movie yourself and find out. Suffice to say, the fact that there's one left, how do you have sequels? I mean, when they started doing sequels, it was absolutely ridiculous. The second one, all of a sudden, changed and said they were from outer space. I don't even want to get into how ridiculous these sequels were. And then the TV show spawned off didn't make any sense to me either because of that underlying premise. And the ending to that first movie it's just perfect. Number 2, my runner-up, and that is Conan the Barbarian. This is the movie that I wouldn't say it put Arnold in that stratosphere yet, but it did propel him a certain amount. It was a serious movie. Obviously, his dialogue was very little because he's a barbarian, right? But this movie is one of the greatest revenge movies I've ever seen. Perfect. There are 2 cuts of the movie. Both of them, you can watch either one of them. They're both fine. There's very minimal differences between the 2. I grew up watching this, so I have a huge amount of nostalgia for it. I've always wanted to own his sword. There are 2 swords, actually. His father's sword and the sword that he uses. I've always wanted to use his, which is known as the Atlantean sword. Coming in at number 1, my all-time favorite sword and sorcery, sword and sandal, whatever you want to call it, movies with swords, is, I'm cheating a little bit here, it is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Peter Jackson trilogy. I got a preview of this movie back in the 80s when I saw Ralph Bakshi's animated movie. I'd never read the books. I should have, because those books were really popular with like geeks and nerds back then. And I was one of them, but I was stupid enough not to read the books. I should have read them. But I got to see that animated one, and when I heard that this was coming out as a full live, live movie, I jumped at it. True story. I brought my daughter to see it. We sat like in like the fourth row, and when it got with the orcs and stuff, I realized my daughter's way too young to see this. Took her out of there. I'm sorry. I took her out of there, and then I ran back to the nearest theater as soon as I could and watched it on my own. Ironically, my daughter, when she got a little mischievous, at this point they were on like DVDs. She was a little older. I said, you keep up. I'm gonna make you watch the Lord of the Ring movies. They'd scare the shit out of you. And then I took her to see it, and now she loves them. Now she ended up, she ended up marathoning all three of them with me. Go figure, kids. It's world building at its best. Tolkien is a genius. What he did. I mean, this guy didn't just create a story or multiple stories. He created entire languages to back this story up. I mean, this is really deep stuff. Now, Amazon is doing like a Rings prequel type story. Thank God. Listen, don't ask me about the Hobbit movies. I think they're trash. Apologies, but I really do. They're just pure trash. I'm kind of upset over having to spend money to go see them. But these three are special. And there you have it. So another ranking done. I'm not sure how many more I'm going to remix. I think I'm starting to reach a level where, my older videos are more to the level of my current videos. So, I might do one or two more, but we're coming to the end of this kind of remix saga that I got going on. And on to new things, as always. I'm always coming up with something new. So from the city that never sleeps, from the BK,
See my face in
peace,
lights, on my
baby.
name on marquees found down on Broadway. Even if it ain't what it seems, I got a pocket full of dreams, baby. I'm from New York, concrete jungle.